The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks, depending on where you're logging in from. That'll sound just about right. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Don Cook. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at 7Signal. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. I've got 10:58 here local time in Cleveland. I've got Jim Vada with me here today. He is in Cincinnati, and we would love to know where you all are dialing in from today. I know we got a lot of global activity going on and a lot of interest as our employees, our teams go remote, and we're trying to do some troubleshooting for them. So I know we're all working from home, or at least most of us are working from home. So if you don't mind taking a second, open up your control panel, go to the Q&A pane, and let Jim and I know where you're dialing in from. We'd really appreciate it. I saw some really cool locations as I was spinning through the registrations. So I'm interested to see who all is joining us today. So I see Bloomington, Minnesota, Michigan, Minnesota, the Netherlands. We've got Moscow. I see Texas. Welcome, gang. Keep these coming. Maine. Freeport, Maine, that is. Thank you, Kurt, for clarifying. Keep these coming, gang. We love hearing about where you're all logging in from. We've got some, I think we're going to have some interesting weather here today. A nice day here in Cleveland, getting up to the 60s or so. How's the weather looking for you in Cincinnati, Jim?
Oh, it's awesome. Yesterday we hit 75, and right now it's already 72 outside with sun. So perfect spring weather.
You're doing a little bit better than us up here. Well, I hope you're all starting to enjoy some spring weather no matter where you are in the world. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a great topic for you today, how to troubleshoot home Wi-Fi and wireless devices for remote employees with Mobileye. And we kind of went off script a little bit this week to talk more specific about a product and the offer that we have. We've had a significant amount of interest for our 50 for 50 from prospects, and 1,000 for 60 with our customers, and I'll get through those offers in a second if you're not aware. But we wanted to make this a little bit more specific and do a large kickoff with everyone so everyone understands what the product is, its capabilities, how to use it, and where to get and where to find the useful information. So we're going to touch on a lot of topics. I think we're going to have a little something for everyone today, whether you're a Mobileye customer, prospect, or not. So let's go ahead and get started. I mentioned that Jim Vada is with me today. Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and why these guys should care.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So I'm our Director of Global Wi-Fi Solutions here at 7Signal. I manage our team of sales engineers. I am also a CWNE and CCNP wireless, among some other certs. And then I'm also, I've got experience across several different verticals as a wireless engineer before joining 7Signal. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jim Vada. And I have a blog solely about Wi-Fi at framebyframewifi.net.
All right, thank you, Jim. Just some quick updates before we get started. I mentioned last week, wanted to make sure everyone was aware we've got a new case study on our site featuring Florida Blue Cross Blue Shield. Great use case and scenarios for headquarter deployment, retail stores, remote, all that fun stuff that we're all living now, all included in that case study. You can find that at 7signal.com and click on the knowledge base there. We've transitioned all of the archive webinars over to YouTube. So for those of you who are interested in getting access to more of these great best practices webinars, we've transitioned probably 20 or so of those videos over to YouTube. We'll continue to do that for you all. If you are interested in a full product tour, we do those every Friday at noon Eastern time. You can go to go.7signal.com/tour. I'll share this URL in the chat room so you can all have access to that. But we won't go into too much Sapphire Eye today. We may talk to it if there's questions, but Nothing deep for certain. We will be sharing, of course, a copy of today's webinar before it goes up on YouTube, so you'll have advanced access to that. So thanks for joining us today. Two special offers I mentioned earlier, the 50 for 50 offer. If you didn't see that in the invite that you got from us, or you haven't been to our website recently, you can go to go.7signal.com /50 for 50. So that'll give you access to Mobileye for 50 days on 50 devices and free engineer analysis. So please go fill out one of those forms if you haven't already done so already. And the same goes for customers. We have an exclusive offer for our Sapphire Eye customers who have not migrated over to Mobileye. That's go.7signal.com /1000 for 60. And I'll drop these URLs into the chat room as well. So just a little bit about 7Signal before we get going, because I know we've got a lot of new members today who are taking advantage of that 50 for 50 offer. So I'll just speed through this a little bit and we'll get to the meat and potatoes here in just a second. But 7Signal was established in 2007. We hit some major milestones through the years and crunch a lot of data for our customers. We monitor over 5 million devices on a daily basis, and all the networks that our sensors are on, we're crunching a lot of data. We hit over 1 billion data points analyzed daily last year, major milestone for us, really proud of that. Over 200 customers around the world, Fortune 500s, 30 plus partners. I know a lot of you are coming in from the EU and the UK and Russia and Baltics. Welcome. Going through some of our great partners there in Mexico, I saw as well. Whether you're working with Sama or Comtech or Open Reality or TrueCom or NetPeppers, thanks folks for joining us. They're great partners. They're going to help you through the process and make sure you understand what it is that we do. We have 13 patents, so what you're going to see from 7Signal, you can only see from 7Signal. We're really proud of those patents. So in a nutshell, 7Signal is here to enable the wireless world, and more so now that our employees are working remotely and using those home Wi-Fi networks. And we help our customers find and fix Wi-Fi issues, whether they're home or network related, enterprise network related, I should say. And what we do is we've developed an outside-in enterprise framework that's completely AP and device agnostic and modular. So depending on what your troubles and challenges or problems are, we can input a solution that's perfect for you. All of our solutions are replete with reporting, analytics, and alerting, so you can be proactive with your wireless network monitoring. And what we're doing is we're looking for the top 7 Wi-Fi problems, regardless of what the issue is in the world of Wi-Fi, whether it presents itself as slow or folks unable to connect. It bubbles up to one of these issues: congestion, coverage, co-channel and radio interference, network services, roaming, adapters and drivers, and wireless LAN configuration. And how we're finding it with our software and hardware, we're running active and passive tests on your network and on the devices, looking for things like throughput, packet loss, latency and jitter, a MOS score, looking at those individual adapter and driver combinations on the devices, delivering a spectrum analysis so you can see any interference that's going on in your network. So it's important for you to understand the 7Signal approach, which is outside in, versus what we call the legacy approach, or inside out. So right now, if you're not a 7Signal customer, you're relying on your devices and your access points for information, uptime, service quality, service levels, that kind of stuff, which is great. We're here to complement those. Where we come in is we give you visibility into your end user experience, which your manufacturer cannot. We come as independent observers, and we give you that unbiased information about the network, about the devices, about your end user experience, whether that's on your enterprise network or again, remotely. We're able to provide that data so your engineers or help desk folks or device folks can get to the root cause of issues, get the problem solved, and get your employees productive, or get data transferring again, whatever the question or issue may have been. So just 2 modules we're going to talk about today. They're all part of the 7Signal platform. On the left, you'll see Mobileye, which is where we're going to spend our time today. That is a completely software as a service application that runs on the device itself. Windows, Mac, Android devices, 100% software based. And those red icons underneath, you'll remember from our little circular slide earlier, where it talks about the problems that we solve. These are the 5 problems that Mobileye solves. Adapters and drivers, roaming, adjacent and co-channel interference, coverage and congestion. Those are the issues you'll be finding and fixing with Mobileye. And on the right is our Sapphire Eye product, which we're not going to talk about today, but that is our perfect client or sensor that lives up in the rafters with the access points that's giving you information about interference, network services, configuration, coverage and congestion issues. It is a software enabled hardware, excuse me, that also gives you that full spectrum analysis. We're the only vendor on the planet to offer this complete suite, and we're really, really proud of it. So hopefully I kept that brief enough for you all. Jim, I'd love to share the controls with you and get on with the show.
Sounds good. Thanks, Don. And so let's talk about the challenge that we're facing with work from home all of a sudden starting in so many businesses and organizations. You know, it happened on short notice because of COVID-19. And so there wasn't a lot of pre-planning. There wasn't a lot of sort of checking to make sure home networks were up to the task of supporting our enterprise applications. And, you know, that leaves us in this situation where we have these unreliable, we'll say, networks that we don't have any visibility into. But our enterprise applications are now running over them. And we have to, you know, we have to improvise and try and make it work. Everyone's kind of scrambling right now to keep businesses up and running. And, you know, previously it was a situation where we would say, you know, I'm a network engineer for my company and I support my company's network, and that's what I'm paid to do. And your home network is not my concern. And that's a perfectly reasonable approach, you know, given the fact that you have control and you designed and you manage that enterprise network. And somebody's home network is totally outside of your purview. But circumstances today are different, and we're being asked to troubleshoot and help out work from home users with networking issues. And we've got to sort of do our best to see what we can do. So to dive in a little bit more into, you know, exactly what's wrong with home networks, you know, it all stems from the fact that these are networks that are set up by folks that aren't network engineers. So, you know, the goal is to get connectivity working, plug in all the boxes, connect to the Wi-Fi, and if that work from home user can load a web page, they're done. Nobody's going to walk their home or apartment with an Ekahau Sidekick and do a site survey and plug in application requirements and things like that. No, we just want to make sure it works, and off we go. That's fine at home, but when we've got enterprise applications with very specific requirements, you know, it can lead to problems. And the APs and routers people are using at home are not the same quality as enterprise gear. Also, the internet connections people have almost always are best effort residential connections. They don't have an SLA, they don't have any guaranteed bandwidth. You don't know how large that circuit is. And there's no quality of service on the circuit either, which makes VoIP performance a real question mark as well. So let's get into, you know, some of the boxes you'll encounter in a home network, and I'm gonna pick on ASUS a little bit here. Certainly not the only manufacturer that makes boxes like this, but theirs is theirs had the scariest looking wireless router. So
It
I
certainly
picked that
does.
one out. Yep. So this is like what's considered a gaming router, and you might find this in some of your work from home users networks. And I just want to highlight some of the marketing around it and how each of these features that's presented as a benefit may actually make your job harder in delivering those enterprise applications to that work from home user. And I'm being critical about work from home networks, but I'm not here to pick on end users. They're not network engineers, right? They are buying what's on the shelf, and they believe what's on the side of the box. If anyone's to blame for challenges like this, it's the manufacturers of some of the equipment.
And I thought you were going to say marketing guys.
Well, with our CMO on the line, I'll just say manufacturers. Say that. But let's look at some of these features. So first of all, this is a wireless router with 3 radios in it, 2 5 gigahertz radios and 1 2.4 gigahertz radio. And I'm sure by default they're set to extremely wide channel widths. So it's going to eat up spectrum. If this was your neighbor in a dense apartment building, you'd be pulling your hair out because there would be very few available channels that it's not using or are available, we'll say. So that's no good. And you don't need that much spectrum for a home network. We'll breeze past the fact that it's got 10 gigabit Ethernet and just continue on the Wi-Fi features. It supports the DFS band, which is cool. Lots of available channels there that normally aren't used in residential networks. But if they're near an area where there's going to be DFS hits and it's changing channels a lot, that's going to be really disruptive, and it's unlikely that that end user is going to be able to understand why that's happening. WT Fast is some sort of gaming-centered VPN. So if your home user is using VPN, which many are, now they're using VPN inside a VPN, and that's just going to cause problems. It's not even really marketed clearly as to what it actually is. I had to dig into the documentation a little bit to figure out what that was. Adaptive QoS, this is some of that layer 7 voodoo that some vendors like to use to identify applications on the network and then do something with that. In this case, apply QoS tags. But that's really hard to get right. And your enterprise application traffic is being subjected to that. Mesh networking, again, using more spectrum perhaps than is necessary. And then AI protection, again, this is just more of that layer 7 stuff, but this time it could be blocking traffic, and we're using application signatures and AI to infer what the traffic on the network is and then perform some action. We do this in the enterprise, right? We've got layer 7 content firewalls inspecting traffic, but there we've got very, very expensive hardware. We've got support contracts from the vendors. We've got teams of expert network and security engineers making sure everything works, and it still breaks sometimes. At home, you've got a consumer level box with, built to a price point and almost no visibility into what that software is doing. So the chances of that going well for us with our enterprise application traffic is, well, we can just assume there'll be problems. So simplicity would be better, but unfortunately that's not always what we find. And then back to sort of the design issues at home. People don't like to see those scary Wi-Fi routers with cables all over the place out in the open. And this is a Pinterest board that I found that just shows you all the different ways you could hide your wireless router, so your house is nice and neat, and that ugly appliance is hidden away, out of sight, out of mind. Of course, we know that doing that is not good for the RF environment that it's operating in. Signal strength will be low. There'll be all sorts of things happening to the RF that we don't like, and so not good. Maybe on the positive front, though, a lot of the mesh products really have been designed to be aesthetically pleasing, which hopefully is getting more and more people putting them out in the open, which will provide for better Wi-Fi performance. So there's that. So how are we troubleshooting this? Without any extra visibility like we provide with Mobileye, it almost feels like going through the cable company's tech support script. Unplug it, plug it back in. Can you move the router closer? Which is frustrating for both sides of that conversation, as we all know. And so and there's a lot of ambiguity here. Move the router closer. Well, is it close enough? You don't really know. You're not seeing the actual signal strength and data rates that the client's achieving. Asking the end user how fast their internet connection is, they may not know. And if they run a speed test, is that being limited by poor Wi-Fi or a poor internet connection? And then you can try and walk them through some CLI commands to get some valuable data, but we know how painful that can be when you're sort of trying to get them to type in exactly what you're saying and you're repeating yourself, and then they have to read it back to you. It's a real challenge. So, those are things you can do without any extra help. Another thing, this is, just from my personal experience, you don't have to use Wi-Fi at home. Very few homes and apartments are wired up with twisted pair, Cat5 or Cat6 cables, but there are other wired options. Powerline Ethernet is one that uses the power lines, the electrical lines in your home or apartment to distribute an Ethernet connection or create an Ethernet network. That's not as reliable, perhaps, as twisted pair or the other option here, but it works. I would just say if you try that, keep your receipt and plug it in and see what you get. And if it doesn't work, you can return it. But oftentimes it's fine. The other option is Mocha 2.0. This uses coaxial lines like RG6 for cable TV to do the same thing, to create an Ethernet network using those cables. That's what I use at home, actually. Up to my home office, I've got a Mocha 2.0 interface, and it's just like using twisted pair. It's really fast, very low latency, much more reliable in my experience than Powerline Ethernet. So those are options, for a more permanent installation. And then what I would say, though, is to really help solve this work from home problem for an enterprise that has a lot of users in a lot of different places, that's really where Mobileye comes in. It provides the visibility that we need to solve some of these problems and get insights into who's having network issues and what the nature of them are, because it's running on those endpoints on whatever network they're on, their home networks, your network, the coffee shop's network, wherever they are, perhaps in the parking lot after going through the drive-through, but wherever they are. And so it allows you to give more actionable advice based on what you see. So let's dive into a demo and get out of these slides. So let me make myself presenter and let's share. Here we go. Okay, so we're looking at Mobileye here, and this is all the information we've got from a single computer in our demo environment. And here's the host name. We can search for them by host name and pull them up really easily. And what we can see are the problems, the Wi-Fi problems and end-to-end problems he's had over time. We can dive into the raw data here and look at that if we want, including tracking his location. So you see the location there, work from home in Copley, Ohio, and then sometimes he's at headquarters, right? Going back and forth a little bit, back in early March when we're looking at this. So we can see the nature of the problems he's had and where they've occurred. So let's look at this roaming problem. You can see here he's had one on our corporate network, but also on his home network, hashtag #MomoGoBoom. I think that's what the hashtag he uses on all his cat photos on Instagram, if I believe.
That's exactly what
if
it
I
is.
understand. Yeah, exactly. So he wants to get the word out to all of his neighbors to check him out there.
Apparently.
But he's got a multi-AP network at home. He's got probably a mesh network, which are more and more common at home because they provide more coverage and they're easy to deploy. But now you have to consider roaming problems, and here's an instance where he had a roaming problem where his machine did not roam from one AP to the next effectively. And we can scroll through and see that, yeah, actually that's happened a couple times at his house, which is very handy. We can also see coverage issues, right? Very easy to understand what these are, but this is that problem where the wireless router got stuck behind the refrigerator, and now you have to help them figure out how close it needs to get or where to put it. And this takes the guesswork out of it. Yeah, it was the signal strength was low before, and I can see if we look at the analysis area here exactly what it is now after changes are made. So we can tell if an intervention was effective enough. Congestion problems will help us look at that issue where the speed test results were bad. Well, why was it bad? Was it because the router was still behind the refrigerator and the Wi-Fi performance was in the tank? Or is it because you're on a residential internet connection that's not given the same priority as a business circuit is? And here we can see, okay, we have very low throughput. We ran a throughput test automatically, just like that speed test does. This runs in the background automatically, and our Wi-Fi data rate is great. So we don't have a Wi-Fi problem here in terms of data rate, but man, this channel is just absolutely saturated, 91% channel utilization. We grabbed that right out of the beacon frame from the AP he was connected to. So we know that he's in a really, really ugly RF environment. We can see what channel he was operating on. It was channel 11 in the 2.4 gigahertz band. In dense residential areas, 2.4 gigahertz band can get pretty trashed. And maybe he was, who knows, heating up cat food in the microwave, and that was causing interference, causing that channel utilization to go so high. So very, very handy, because now we're taking our attention away from that internet circuit and thinking, oh, okay, he's in, let's try moving it to a different channel. Can we switch it maybe to 5 gigahertz and get away from this really, really ugly spectrum? Now we're getting more and more closer to those root causes. Co-channel interference, also very valuable. Some of these are issues at the headquarters where we've made a mess testing out new APs. But also, these end-to-end problems are really valuable. Can I reach the application servers that I need to reach? So let me change our time frame here. Let's go to this last week and look at ping connectivity again. So first of all, he's had some trouble pinging his gateway. If we can't ping the gateway at his house, we've got a home network problem that doesn't affect, it isn't caused by anything you're doing on your end. But also, can we ping this Skype for Business gateway? This VoIP application server. If we're a Skype for Business shop and we can't reach it, that's a problem that we need to get into. Similarly, we've got a public Citrix portal we can check on and see if we can reach it or not. And not just if we can reach it, but how much latency. This problem is showing us over a second of latency to the Skype for Business front end. That's way too much for acceptable VoIP performance. Skype for Business wants 40 milliseconds or less in round trip time. So that's really, really out there and it's going to cause VoIP problems. One thing I'm noticing too as I'm looking at these is here he is operating in the 2.4 gigahertz band primarily. So again, we're getting so much really good data from this home network and really getting a feel for what's going on and how applications are being disrupted. Here we are again with high latency, this time to a Citrix front end. So, if you're doing VDI from home, low latency is really, really important for good performance. And we can also measure throughput and web download. So like web download is going to be just loading that web page and making sure we get a success message from the web server. This is an application layer test, and you can see here on the same channel and band, he's been unable to reach this server. So really handy, and we can still, whenever we need to, go through this data on our own, just scroll through the raw data to help us make our own determinations about it. These tests are all highly configurable, so I can go in here and say, I want to change this Skype for Business test to only run on certain networks. Probably want to run it on every network in this case. Speaking of which, I can go into my setup and change this field so we're testing every Wi-Fi network that our users connect to. Before this COVID-19 thing started happening, a lot of people were only testing their own networks, right? I don't want to know what's going on anywhere else except for the networks I control, but now people are switching it over to test every network because they've got a remote distributed workforce and they need visibility wherever they are now. And also, these thresholds are all configurable. So if I need better signal strength or better data rates for the applications that I'm supporting, I can configure the thresholds that make sense here as well. I showed you how to look at a machine sort of reactively, where you're just logging in, looking at all the data and making determinations about what you've seen. But we have some really neat ways to proactively discover machines that are having issues too. So our Wi-Fi report will show us all the SSIDs that our users have connected to in the last day. And I can drill into them and see what problems they've encountered. If I look at my own network, I can see that I had a congestion issue yesterday afternoon. So kind of low throughput, and if I was using a throughput hungry business application, that could be an issue. And similarly, I can see all the other networks that people have been using as well, and drill in and see, if there are particular users there that need some help. So here's one. Again, coverage issues here at this work from home Rocky River location. And yeah, he's had pretty low signal strength. I think he is working out in his garage and has like a brick wall between the garage and the house where his wireless router is. So that would be it. This is really helpful information to see when troubleshooting that problem. And we can use this to find those users that have had the most issues before they even call us. We can identify them and see if there are things that point at certain potential underlying problems that we can notify them about. We've got some more standard reports that'll help us with that too. So one of those is the Wi-Fi problems by AP. So we can look at the APs in use and see which have the most problems, and then drill in and see who the users are of those machines. This is a work from home location here, and here, this AP has had a lot of coverage issues, and we'll see the listing of clients that have dealt with that over the last week. So pretty handy there. And then we can always drill in and search for a particular client this way and discover it to look at their data over the past 3 months if we need to. We've got 90 days of data here. So very, very handy. A great way to get remote visibility into those work from home networks. This runs on Windows, Mac OS, and Android, and it's easy to distribute even to those remote machines using Microsoft SCCM or an MDM tool to get it installed and configured. It's easy, and so I think that about wraps up the demo. Let's go back to the slides. Don, I will make you presenter again.
All right, I can do it. Okay, thank you.
Cool.
All right, great demo as usual, Jim. So I'll take your questions now. So if you've got those related to anything, any trouble that you're seeing now, challenges that you can't overcome, something specific to 7 Signal, whatever you'd like during this time. And thanks for throwing those questions in throughout the presentation, so it makes the transition here a lot easier. So thank you for doing that. Jim, one question here about the mutual action plan for the 50 for 50 offer. Can you just give a general overview of why that's valuable and what that is?
Yeah, that's just so the POC guide that we start that off with is just a kind of a quick summary of what's going to happen and who's going to be involved, and it helps us get a feel for what your goals are for the trial, so that we're not wasting your time, and when we do have that meeting, we can focus in on what your pain points are and what you need help with. So it's very targeted, and it keeps everyone sort of on the same page about the trial.
Right, no doubt about it. What do you think the timing is? From form fill out to go live with Mobileye? Pretty easy.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. Those new Mobileye organizations are usually stood up in a day or two.
Okay, thank you. One question around pricing here. It says, do you set the price targets? Oh, excuse me, not price. This says ping. I should put my glasses on. Do you set the ping targets manually, or are those automatically entered based on applications Mobileye identifies on the network?
Yeah, good question. So there are a couple that are preset the gateway ping is preset, and then I think we've got google.com preset, but you can absolutely customize those. We encourage all our customers to do that. So you're pinging the application servers or endpoints that are most relevant to you and your business, including those on your private networks that aren't internet accessible. So yes, it's fully customizable.
Thank you, Jim. Next question here, is Mobileye available only on the cloud, or is there an on-premise version?
Mobileye is cloud native and cloud only.
Alrighty, thank you. Next one here. Sorry, I'm scrolling through here these as fast as possible. Another question about installed versus cloud.
I see a question here about being connected to VPNs. We've done a lot of work actually in the last couple of weeks to ensure much broader compatibility with software VPN software that people are running. So our version of Mobileye that is being released this week and is automatically installed for all our customers has better VPN compatibility. So that's a pretty neat feature that we've got now.
And do you know the general availability of that, Jim? Is that this week?
That is, yeah, that should be this week. I don't know exactly which day.
Alrighty. Question about ISPs here. How could you use Mobileye for residential consumers of ISPs? Would it be just the case where basics for clients and speed problems?
That's a good question. So yeah, you could have those customers install the agent themselves, which is very simple to do. Anyone with admin rights on a machine can do it. And we do have a troubleshooting organization, which is a organization where the agent actually uninstalls itself automatically. So if you wanted to put this out on BYOD machines or customers who have computers that you don't own or manage and they don't want to run it forever, you can use that self-destructing installer and only run it for a short period of time. So that can help as well.
All right. What would the client leaving the house and roaming to cellular show up as a coverage issue?
Yeah, so we only measure, we only take test results when the client has an active Wi-Fi connection. So, once it's on cellular and it no longer has a Wi-Fi connection, you wouldn't see any data from us. But, if they're in a situation where they're sort of in between, it's kind of, on the front step or in the garage and the Wi-Fi connection is there, but it's really poor and that phone or laptop is still hanging onto it, you would see that as a coverage issue.
That's true. Next question here is around MOS. Can Mobileye do voice testing, such as MOS scores?
Yeah, our macOS agent actually can do a VoIP test where it does a simulated voice call over a UDP stream and then calculates a MOS score based on the latency, packet loss, and jitter in that test.
All right, question here from the gentleman who asked about the cloud architecture for Mobileye. He understands, but what is the sensor architecture?
Oh, sure. So Sapphire Eye is cloud-based, and we can localize those. We have them in cloud servers in different continents to satisfy different needs and regulatory concerns. There is an on-premise version, but we try to avoid our customers deploying that, because then they end up having to support a server and software that needs a significant amount of upkeep. So we encourage cloud, and its cloud ends up being significantly less expensive as well. But there is an on-premises version if absolutely necessary.
All right, we've got time for maybe one or two more here. Try and get to them all. If we don't get to them live here, we can certainly email you answers to these. Another cloud-related question: is the agent updated automatically when versions are released? And the Mobileye dashboard is hosted. Does the dashboard get updated when the client is updated?
Yeah, so the agent is updated automatically on all of our platforms, which is great. So as soon as we have a new stable release, those endpoints will pick it up and download it and install it silently in the background, which is great. It makes it easier to deliver new features and new functionality faster, and than having to update it on your own. The dashboard is hosted, that's right, and usually those things do get updated at the same time, because a fix for the agent or a new feature in the agent will need new functionality in the dashboard to take advantage of it. But they are, that's not always the case. Sometimes there's just bug fixes for the agent that get pushed out independently of a dashboard update as well.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, Jim. We're at 11:45. I'm going to take the rest of the questions offline just so we can stay on time. We try and do that each week. Jim, thank you very much. Folks, thanks very much for joining us today. Everyone enjoy the rest of the week, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, everybody.